The attic is a scary place, but we have to go up there. Maybe for you, it's just a back room or a closet. Either way, let's talk about these storage spaces today on the Christian Principles Podcast.
The Christian Principles Podcast is brought to you in partnership with the Herzog Foundation. But bear in mind, the views and opinions expressed here are those of the hosts and not necessarily of the Herzog Foundation. Welcome to the Christian Principles Podcast. I'm Matt George.
And I'm Mark Zockoll, and today we're talking about the attic. Or perhaps it's not the attic for you. Perhaps it's a backroom closet. Perhaps it's a storage. Perhaps it's an outbuilding, and you just try to stay away from it. Give the facilities guy that, or all the seniors who are on some kind of service.
Let's just really hope it's not your office.
Yeah, that's not. You shouldn't say anything.
Let's hope that.
Yeah, sometimes after certain events of the year, I know, Matt, your office is less so what you want it to be, and more like the attic, so to speak. Now, it is a joy to continue to talk about the pieces that make up being a Christian school principal that are just unique unto us. And I know perhaps it's not unique in the world to have a situation where you don't want to go into the storage space because the storage space is full. Perhaps that's not just Christian school principling. However, I do think it's unique for us. And I think it's unique for us in this way. Many of our schools are not our own buildings, or we share the building in a church school situation. Or even if you don't share the building in a church school situation, you have that original building. And the original building, or that one site on the campus, that's where the campus got started, and that was the house that you used for a great number of grades. That perhaps you have more buildings than that now, or perhaps not. And it was the place that the drama existed and the athletics existed. It's the place where you kept all your office material and everything else. That was just the spot. We're going to talk about the rest of the day, the attic, because for Matt and for both my installments, it was a literal attic where things went upstairs to never be thought about again, or to be pulled out once a year, or whatever else it happened to be. Matt, you got the same feel as I do for the attic?
Yeah, it is a drudgery, but it is a thing that must be discussed.
It must be discussed. Not only that, but we're also going to hit today the inbox. So we've talked about having an inbox review every now and then, and we have some inbox pieces to work through that are interesting, including a wiggity whack comment on Spotify to one of our episodes, and that's about as far as we got. Before we go any further, we're going to hear from our partner, the Herzog Foundation. And by the way, we are so excited to have sent to the Herzog Foundation leadership training our first claiming principal. And you know what he said? He said he's sending the rest of his team because he had an excellent time. So listen in, and let's hear how the Herzog Foundation can support your school.
The Christian Principles Podcast is proud to partner with the Herzog Foundation in our mutual goal to see Christian school educators thrive, to further its mission to catalyze and accelerate the development of quality, Christ-centered K-12 education. The Herzog Foundation offers an array of programs, such as online content, up-to-date news, training and events, grants, and hands-on organizational improvement initiatives. Leaders need to head over to the Herzog Institute to find amazing training opportunities for both administration and teachers. Herzog has also become a great hub of the latest news in education through their network of podcasts, including the one provided by yours truly. What a blessing the Herzog Foundation has been. Head over to herzogfoundation.com now so you too can be strengthened by this incredible organization. That's herzogfoundation.com. Just one more thing before we get back to the episode. If Herzog has been a blessing to you and your school, would you mind sending us a message telling us how? We'd love to share that with others. All right. Are we going up in the attic?
Let's go up in the attic. Missionally speaking, what should the attic reflect? Let's start there.
Well, do we have to start with a mission? Do we have to start there?
Because
I feel like I'm already losing.
Yeah, missionally speaking, the Christian school attic should be a place of order and decorum, no waste, Definitely not a place where we would just go and store and hoard, right? That
No.
should never be it.
Oh my word!
We should
Yeah.
just stop this now because
This was
it's
a
going to
bad
be
idea.
this is
This is just bad. I know this is not in the mindset of those of us on the Eastern Shore, but this might also be a basement for you.
Oh yeah, could be a basement.
I know that was for my ministry growing up. It was the basement.
Go down to the boiler room in the basement.
Down in the boiler room.
Oh
yeah.
man.
So yeah, whatever that space is.
Okay. So
and I know for them too. Like their basement is my attic. Like that. That's just we don't talk about that. We don't go there. You know. I know there's something in there, but you'll never find it.
but we kept it. Kept it for good
it's there.
reason.
Yeah.
So when I think of the attic, of course, the ministry I grew up in, what Matt's a part of now, yes, there is the pull down stairs because the building is a single level building. There's attic space across the HVAC space and whatnot for the drop ceiling, but it's an attic. It's a pull down set of stairs. You crawl up, and then you got a narrow hallway of an attic. And the second institution I served in, much the same, very similar building, brick style and everything, even, and they had that same kind of a little bit more than a crawl space attic that just ran the spine of the building and was segmented off into rooms, and each room had a bunch of stuff in it. So I one of the last things I did in my first installment, one of the first things I did in my second installment, is I went up into the attic space. Now, Matt, let's ask you what past the mission, because that was just embarrassing to talk about, because we know these attics do not generally reflect our mission, other than to say waste not, want not, perhaps, right?
There you go.
When are you personally going up into your attic?
Personally, I would prefer never. However, it happens far too frequently. But mainly because, this stuff is in my office and I need to get it in the attic.
Gotta get it in the attic.
If I don't, but this is the inevitable thing, is as soon as I accumulate a few things in my office, and it's like, okay, I could take it up to the attic right now, but it's a pain, so I'll just wait because I know more things are coming. And then it is without fail, I'll decide, okay, it's time. All this is going up. I got a clear office. Wonderful. Next day, stuff for the attic in my office. And then you just start the cycle all over again.
It's a cycle which cares not for us.
Yeah. Now,
it's a cycle
I will say, like, when it comes to the things that you want to store, especially if you do have, like, for us, a pull down ladder, where it's not an easy, just a staircase up or something like that. Maybe not necessarily easy, but it's not a thing that you want to frequent a lot. You definitely want to be thinking, like, this is stuff that we go up and we look for once a year. That's really what we try to do. A lot of our teacher decor for classrooms, they're doing this theme this year, so that box comes down and the other themes go up. That kind of thing is, for the most part, what our attic is used for.
Matt, is there a written policy for what goes into your attic space?
Mark, would you think that I'm the perfect person? And of course I have an attic policy. I don't believe so. I could be surprised. Maybe we do actually have something written down somewhere, but I don't think we do right now.
If any of our listeners have an attic policy or a storage shed policy of, like, if it does not fit in these parameters, it does not go up or out or down there, that would be really interesting for us to see, because I imagine we started off with mission. We've talked about, how often you go up there, when Matt actually goes up there. We should say who goes up there. Like, do you want service students up there? Is that an insurance liability for you?
Yep.
Do you
want? I guess that really does depend on the quality of the attic.
Absolutely, too.
Most people might have a finished floor in their attic. that would be a nice thing, wouldn't it? But
part of it, like a third of it's finished down the center section, mostly, right?
Yeah,
for you?
Yeah. But it's definitely walk on the studs. Walk on the studs.
So
for me, think about walk on the studs.
We think about what's in the attic, and what I pulled down out of an attic was material which should never have gone up, really. If we're going to keep financial records and things like that, we should know exactly how long we're keeping financial records, and the things that we're keeping as far as financial records do not need to be every single receipt ever gained in that year. It can be some smaller subset of things. So it's actually setting a few instructions, or these must be considered before we put anything up in the attic. That would probably be a good thing for all of us to consider.
I'm sure this is probably the case for most of our schools, but textbooks, we're not going to use these textbooks. We're going to go with a different textbook this year. But, we might want these for supplemental material, or we might go back to this one at some point. Once they're in the attic, you'd never go back to those.
They're dead.
Just stop. Do yourself a favor. Now, granted, if it's like, well, we use these every other year or something, yes, I get that. But that has happened where we've changed curriculum and we're like, well, we don't want to necessarily get rid of these, or we can't sell them or something, and so, well, let's hang on to them for a rainy day. No. You may have a little stash of that maybe somewhere down in an office on a bookshelf, but if it's filling up a box, that box needs to take a one-way trip outside.
What should go into this space? What should this space be full of? And we'll approach this from a smaller school setting, but even in our larger school brothers and sisters, we're all tapped for space. We all need more space. Your music teacher wishes he had a music room and a music storage closet, and then 4 more storage closets. Your art person, the same thing. Your kindergarten teacher, who has a different theme every year but doesn't want to go pay for a new theme every year, wants to maintain, a 5-year cycle or something. It's not wrong of them to want to ask for these things. So what is it that should guide whether or not something makes it up into the attic space? And first of all, you well said, if we're getting rid of something, or we're making a change away from something for a good reason, man, I'm one to say let's get rid of it. Let's go ahead and throw a hat over the fence and not leave ourselves what we think of as some kind of lifeline or whatnot. And textbooks, they are where we spend a lot of money. We spend a lot of money on our faculty and staff. We spend a lot of money on textbooks, but textbooks are also usually some of the most consumable things that we get. So I'd probably say no on most textbooks going up there, unless, like you said, it's an elective course and you go through that elective course every other year or something like that. Maybe there's good reason there.
I think the two things to think about is it part of like an annual event? So annual things, we're coming back to that once a year. We only have to touch it once a year. You don't want that taking up space in your go-to storage, like the easy storage. You don't want that stuff in the way where you're just going to be moving it constantly until you get to that point. So the annual stuff should be in this space. And I'm thinking, like, if you have a golf tournament and you have signs, you have maybe a banquet that you do every year, and you've got some decor or something that you use every year, like that kind of stuff should definitely be up there. It should have its space. So you bring it down and you put it right back up. For us, we do a Christmas shop every year. So there's accumulation of items as well, but that's an annual thing. So whenever it's time for that, it all comes out, it goes away, and really nothing should go back until you're preparing for the next year. So annual is one, and then the other one I would say is cyclical. So as you were just saying, if you've got 5 themes that you rotate through in a classroom or something like that, then you have 5 boxes presumably, and so 4 of those boxes are stored in the attic all year long, and then that once a year you're coming and you're putting the one back and you're bringing one down for the next year. So those things that are on a cycle or you're looking at it every single year, those have to be, in my mind, your prioritized items. Like, those have to have their space first before you consider anything else.
If I think of an important documentation which the school finds to be important, I'm probably not going to stick that up in the attic. I probably want to keep that more localized, even if it is years old. So, for example, if you have to keep your financial records for a certain number of years, or you're compelled to do so, I'm not putting those up in the attic necessarily. I'm going to keep those in an office space that it's gonna take its own file folder, its own file, but it's still going to be there because I'm supposed to have these on hand, and on hand is not really in the attic, and more than likely within that span of time, someone's going to forget what's up there since it's not
Right.
written down anyway. There's no inventory anyway.
That's the key there, because it's up there, it's forgotten, out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
If it's in the space and it's been in there for 7 years, and you're on your, this box is going at the end of this year, this box gets to go, that you're definitely thinking about a whole lot more if it's right there.
Mm-hmm. But there's other things besides the financials too. I think of old yearbooks, or perhaps there was a history made of a building campaign or something, and so you have this wardrobe box full of the materials that went into planning for that. Okay, again, is there going to be a space for history, or should I find a better way of displaying that history? I have bare walls over here. Should I instead find a nice mural or muralize?
Yeah.
Should I muralize this thing?
Muralize.
Yeah, I should muralize this thing.
I think the most important word for any attic or basement or any storage space, keyword, consolidation, right?
Yeah.
So, what to your
Keyword,
point, if you've got
burn it to the ground.
down. We live in the digital age too, so if you can convert those things into digital format, then there's no reason other than maybe having a small box that you maintain that has those historical items for a display or something. But even then, like, does that go to the attic? I wouldn't necessarily say that, because again, out of sight, out of mind. You're going to be blowing dust off it, and like, oh yeah, I forgot we even had these things.
You got to make sure that if you tend to be the pack rat as a person, perhaps you need to find somebody who tends to be the thrower outer, and you run past them should this go up into the attic, because the attic is not in any individual's storage area. It should be the organization's storage area. Right. So really, again, there might need to be some yin and yang going on when it comes to what goes up in the attic, and there's some very clear, like, this is good, that's a bad idea, what's up there. Now, Matt, how about clearing that space out? Who's responsible for clearing that space out?
I'll say this: with a church ministry, you've got many things going on. I'd like to say that our attic is primarily school use, but there is some spillover into some church use, some VBS or something like that. So typically you do want to have one person that is knowledgeable as to what is what. And I feel like right now it kind of is, but I don't feel it really doesn't have to be. Somebody else can take that ownership of knowing what everything is in the attic. But that also goes into kind of your order and the way you set everything up, where if you can designate, these shelves, and clearly, label it, or VBS, and everything VBS is right here. This is Christmas shop. Everything Christmas shop is right here. Plays, props, costumes, we haven't even gotten into that kind of stuff. But that all, it wouldn't take much to take one or two people and get them to just know the layout of your storage space, and to be able to determine, okay, this needs to go, this shouldn't go. But labeling is massive. So I tell my teachers, if you want to store stuff in the attic, that's fine. You have to have your name on it. And, it needs to be hopefully in a container, not just sprawled all over the place, but in a container with your name on it. Because then at that point, you're not just going to say, well, I know this has, this teacher's name on it, but I don't really think it's worth keeping, so let's just get rid of it. You're going to have common sense here and go to that teacher and say, do you want to keep this, or you need to change this, or whatever? So you're going to have to go and talk to several people when you're clearing out. But I do think you can have that one person that is able to say, while I know they use this, it's not worth being here. There's a better space for it. They can have that authoritative decision making while clearing it out and reorganizing and deciding, because that's just what drastically needs to be done to ours. And it doesn't get done whenever you have three heads that are, I have my space, I have my space, I have my space. I'll clean my space, you clean yours, and then it just doesn't ever really get done until you just decide, hey, we're going up, we're pulling everything out of the attic, and we're just starting over, but we want one person in charge of it.
That would be awesome. You know, you had said container earlier. I think the word you were searching for was trash bag, because we will have
No, trash bags are horrible.
No
Don't ever
unbagged.
use a trash bag in the attic. If I wrote nothing down, I would say store nothing in a trash bag, because inevitably it's going to be ripped through and everything's falling out of it. Just like with the Rubbermaid containers, don't have lids, no lids. And you would think there'd be lids laying around everywhere. Nope.
No lids. They're gone. The gnomes eat them.
Oh. Or there's lids up there that don't fit a single one of those containers. Just like the Rubbermaid Tupperware thing in my kitchen. Same thing, but it's just in the attic.
And the moment you get rid of it, you'll find it. What I meant was your
exactly.
trash cans often have instructions on them, like Airbnb, like do not place unbagged trash in here. Well, I think what you're looking for was unbagged. Like do not place unbagged trash in the attic, please.
Right.
Because it cannot be free floating up here. The other thought I had was, yes, you nailed it when it came to multiple heads, but someone's got to be the boss up there.
Somebody's got to be the boss.
They really do, because
you know who's the best person to be the boss?
Who's the best person to be the boss?
In our situation, we have this long attic where the staircase is on very much the one side of it. Whoever stuff is in the very back, they need to be in charge, because they've got to go through everybody else's junk in order to get to their stuff.
Sometimes they're jumping over hurdles up there.
Exactly.
Listen,
so that's the person who should be in charge.
But the people who are in charge have to be able to say no, and the people who are in charge have to be able to. They have to be given the ability to say, that's not going up there. And I'm sorry if it was up there for the last 10 years, but it needs to come down, because it doesn't make sense to be up here, because it's been up here for 10 years and we're not going to see it without getting, their head cut off for it. And that's kind of a big deal, because at some point it's a safety issue, because there should not be 14,000 pounds of garbage in the attic, wherever your attic happens to be. Also know when you have those clean out days, just how big your dumpster is and how many extra dumps you can get that week, because you'll find a lot more to throw away. And it might be a good thing to take up with you the person who is pretty good at throwing stuff away. Very little sentimental attachment to things. Yeah,
I would say anything that is useful, like technology, building supplies, whatever else, like keep that out of there if you can. And I know, like for me, there are often those surprise trips to the attic where you go up to the attic, like, oh, why is this here? Didn't know this was here, but I didn't put it here. And I like you were saying, I don't know if I should be the one to take it out of here, but yeah, that anything like that where you're saying, well, we don't have use for it this year, find a different space, because again, when you get it upstairs, people, even when they see it, generally think, I know I've worked with students in our attic, and they're like, well, does this not work or something? Because it's in the attic, so it must not work. Like, why are we putting it up there if it doesn't work? If it doesn't work, we should get rid of it. Like
projects
work,
for later.
But it's been up there for so long, it probably doesn't work anymore.
It's not worth it anymore. Not worth the habit. Listen, we're going to move on into our inbox section.
Inbox time.
What we better hear in our inbox over the next few episodes would be your responses to your attics. That might be a question we should start asking guests. So where is your attic at your school, and how bad is it? Like,
where is it? Is it above or below? Is it outside or inside?
Anyway, to the inbox, we have a sampling of the different reach outs, call outs, thoughts we've been given over the last few episodes. So here's one. This comes in from one of our very consistent feedbackers, person who provides us feedback. So my month of June is spent meeting with homeschool teens and writing up their reports. Earns me a couple $1,000, which is nice. So this is interesting. This comes from a person who has registered himself under an agency in his state that homeschoolers have to walk through that review process, and he makes some money doing that review process under that umbrella, which is really cool. Here's another thought. We've allowed our church member teens who are homeschooling to take their classes at our high school in a hybrid-friendly schedule where we teach those classes 2 days a week, and then the students work independently on other assignments other times. We also encourage homeschoolers to attend our chapel to hear our pastors preach on a rotating basis. Like your guests today, we have a strict policy of wearing the same uniform and being supervised in classrooms at all time. All right, and then he wrapped up that thought with, I definitely agree that homeschoolers like to be independent, so nod there to Lori's terminology, but they keep asking for and assuming that they should be granted exceptions to our expectations, and so I do like the descriptive word slippery.
There you go.
He's
straddling that affirmation.
Yeah, straddling that line there between the two, but we do like that feedback, and hey, here we go. We see somebody else who has a similar homeschooling setup where there's a lot of interaction between the homeschoolers of the church ministry and the church school that's there.
Yeah. Well, to our yearbook episode, we did have a response from St. Francis, which we also shouted out their administrator at one point.
Yeah, Mr. Bernie Bolt.
They said, we host a summer yearbook signing party in July. So I know when we were talking through yearbook, we were talking about, do you get it out before the end of the year, which means you don't include some things, or do you do it like my school did it the next school year? Well, they kind of found the middle ground where they do the yearbook signing in July so we can get all the items from the year, including graduation, in the yearbook, and also provide a time for the students to come together during the summer and take care of the signing fun. We typically do an ice cream treat of some kind, and it's a nice midsummer connection point for our families. We also use tree ring. There it is.
There it is.
Again, and quality is fantastic. So St. Francis is finding some success with doing a midsummer school event, which is pretty cool.
Absolutely.
With their yearbook signing.
Okay, so here is just a shout out to Elizabeth Rogers of the Herzog Foundation. When we send in our episodes and she makes comment on them, she is one of the most encouraging people we've met so far in our time running this podcast. And her thoughts for us on a certain episode, guys, you handled a more sensitive, controversial topic really well. Now, this is kind of a heads up. You haven't heard this episode yet, and this episode will be further described and qualified and talked through more than any other episode we've done. It already has its own space on our social media platforms as having been an episode that we wrote, we executed, we edited, we sent off, and then we're gonna redo it. Yeah. But we do it because we love you, because you deserve it. So.
It's interesting that we haven't really done that. Like,
no, we haven't.
We've never. There may have been one where we started recording. We're like, okay, we got to change this, but never like completely finished with it, and then said we can do it better.
Let's do something else with it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. This next one is another thank you going back to the homeschoolers. So thank you for the 2 episodes about homeschool students. In my online college courses, I deal a lot with homeschool students. And they do occasionally struggle to deal with timed tests and fixed deadlines and firm boundaries. Others embrace those realities and do great work. So yeah, we do know it's a little bit different to have to find that balance.
All right, the last one to hit today. This came in on Spotify in one of the comments.
Yeah.
And the username of this individual, I believe, was Fireherter. Fireherter, Fireherter. So there we go. If you're listening in, Fireherter, this is for you. This show is Wiggity Whack. And by the way, I did look up Wiggity Whack on Urban Dictionary just to make sure it wasn't something like horrendously filthy, and it's not. From what even Urban Dictionary knows, it's just a description. So this show is Wiggity Whack. So we responded, now exactly how Wiggity Whack are we? And the respondent said, Big Whack, as wacky as a mob hitman. And then we said, interesting. So there you go. There's some other unsolicited feedback, which kind of makes me feel like our YouTube feedback every now and then. Just who's out there and why are you giving this rando feedback like this? Yeah, but sure. Thanks for the ear there, friend. We appreciate that. Matt, who's the Christian Administrator Spotlight today?
Well, that would require me to know that ahead of time, Mark. Why would you think I would be that prepared? I'm just kidding.
I did spring that on you. That was really fast.
You did.
I'm
but
sorry.
Sherry Zockoll
Yeah, Sherry
I'm going
Zockoll.
to
All
say
right.
Zockoll. Oh, from
Sherry-
Owatonna.
Sherry Zockoll from
Owatonna Christian
Owatonna.
School. Owatonna,
So-
Minnesota.
When we met with Mr. Alan Hodak, he mentioned to us that there was a Mr. Cade Sanders who had been going through his boot camp, which we are actually thinking about taking ourselves there, Mr. Hodak. So, but what he mentioned was that this Mr. Cade Sanders would be stepping into administrative oversight of Owatonna Christian School. But what we didn't know was that this fine lady, Miss Zockoll, yeah, I'm going to go with Zockoll.
I
That's fun.
would say Zockoll.
Sherry. Zockoll.
Not Seagull.
No,
That's
no,
a
not
bird.
Seagull, but Zockoll, like the movie star, right?
Correct.
We found out that she has been in the interim, the administrator.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure we send some encouragement to our interim administrators stepping in, filling the void. And what we've often found is that these administrators, they do this interim thing not just once; they might do it a couple times.
Yeah.
It takes someone who has been steady with the ship for a while to do that, to do it well. So, Sherry, thank you so much for what you're going to do. And I'm going to spring on Matt, but he's going to pray for you again.
Let's
here,
pray.
Sherry.
Father, we thank you for Sherry and the work that she has done at Owatonna, and even a shorter period of time. But Lord, it's not any less important, less impactful. So we thank you for her heart, her desire to help that ministry. I just pray that you would continue to guide her, and maybe if she's a part of this transition, that all would go well. And Lord, that you just continue to use her in a great way in the years to come. We thank you and pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Well, that was actually a lot of fun. I didn't know if I'd laugh that hard talking about the attic, but I sure
we
did.
we needed one of these.
Nice refresher. All right, folks. Thanks for growing with us today.
Before you go, please be sure to hit that follow button on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Also, on Spotify, be sure to tap the star icon near the top and select the number of stars you'd like to give us. We'd be so grateful for 5. On Apple Podcasts, scroll down to the ratings and review section and then tap write a review to share your thoughts of the podcast. Thank you.